Okay, we've already talked about making API calls in React, but now we're going to serve the React application with Express and make API calls to our local server. We're also going to use a Mongo database to store and serve our data. So let's get started. In our completed application, we can see that our books list is populated when we load our page. We're also able to load the application when we go to localhost port 3001. Port 3001 is our Express server port. To do this, what we need to do is create a build of the React application and serve the build with our Express server. We'll talk more about this later. Like all other applications, we start by setting up our React application and installing necessary dependencies. We then need to seed that database. We can do this by running yarn seed, which just executes the seeddb.js file in the scripts folder. Okay, now that we've done this, let's create a method to make an API request to get all the books loaded into our application. We're going to put this in the component didMount method so that the application isn't waiting for a response to load the application. We'll have it run the loadBooks method, and in that method, we'll make the API request. If we look in API.js under the utils folder, we'll notice that we already have a method for the GET request, which is just simply making a request to the local route API/books. We'll import the API file and use the method to update the state. Once we've done this, we have to remember to build the application using yarn build in order to actually have something that the Express server can serve. Remember, localhost port 3000 will still be able to work, but port 3001 is how we'll get the Express server to load that application. Alright, let's build this and see how it works. Okay, cool. We've been able to populate the books list from our Mongo database, but how exactly is it all working? Let's take a look at server.js. The important thing to note here is that React is front end and Express is our backend. In order to serve React, Express needs an HTML file to serve. The build creates that necessary HTML file. In our server.js file, we're telling the Express server to serve that build folder for static assets, handle API requests, and connect our Mongo database. You might be wondering why this is important when we can access our application perfectly fine at port 3000. This will be useful when we deploy our application to a server. And finally, let's talk about why the React application at port 3000 is still able to communicate with the Express server that is running on port 3001. If we look at the package.json in the client directory, we can see this property here that sets a proxy to the 3001 port. This allows the development server to talk to the Express server. Now that we understand how this works, let's complete the rest of this application in the next video, where we add the ability to add and delete entries to the database.